Hey everybody, welcome to our third edition of the Skookum Session Bigfoot Podcast. It's going to be episode 3 of our new season. Got a great topic for you guys tonight. We're going to talk about the stinky, nasty stench. Y'all know what I mean. So, Gary got a kick out of that one. So, imagine he's got some good thoughts. Anyway, yeah, so it should be a pretty good topic for everybody. Got the statement from one of our viewers. So before we get started, I'll read it, and then we'll go from there. Concerning the stench associated with Sasquatch and other cryptids, it would be interesting in the accounts that is reported to tally how many times it was noticed before, during, and after the actual sighting. This would help figure out if it's a continual bodily function or recreationary, and if so, or what stimulus or desired effect, warning, or defensive to other potential predators or threats, or an offensive measure meant to sicken or debilitate potential prey. I'll get this one. I'll start this one off. If you guys don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please.
Anyway, well, firstly, over the reports I've taken over the years, I've found, I don't know about Gary, Daryl, Nick, Rusty, you guys have come up with over the years, but I find that I'd say 50% of cases, people are, he mentioned after, but what I've heard over the years is before and during the encounter. And like I said, I personally never smelled it. As far as a defensive measure or a warning, I think that's definitely a possibility. Now, as far as the predator thing, I don't know what's out there that can, take down and feed on a full-grown male Sasquatch. Personally, my personal thoughts, I think it might be a glandular thing. If they want you the hell out of there, maybe they can let it off at will. There are other, creatures, entities that can do that, But yeah, it's, I've got more, but I'll come back to that after. But Nick, you being, primarily a dogman guy, is there any scent associated?
Well, I had an encounter, and I've been researching it since that encounter. And I generally ask the people that question.
Yeah.
Besides what time of the day, the light, and what were the surrounding, area like. And I ask that question: what does it look like? Did you smell anything? I say. I don't say, did it smell like?
Yeah.
Mine was during and after.
Oh, okay.
Because I drove up on it.
Okay.
I mean, I wasn't just walking around. I drove up on it.
All right.
And while I was watching it for that minute and 6 seconds or so, it smelled like blood and urine mix. It walked away. Other people that I've asked about it, the majority of them didn't recognize the scent, but the ones that I did get a positive from, they said the same thing. They said that it smelled like blood and urine. Even though I'm mainly dog man, I do Sasquatch, I do Mothman, and you name it. Sasquatch smells like poop. That's what that's all the research I've ever, like they just didn't wipe their butts or their hairy hindies or whatever, and just smells. As far as a glandular thing or being an offensive thing or a warning, I don't know. I think it might be glandular, but it's just hygiene, I guess. Really, for that, they're not whipping out the Charmin,
That's true.
I agree.
That's true.
And as far as it being offensive, offensive to my nose, but something that big, a dog man with freaking 3-4 inch claws and 7+ feet, a Sasquatch 8, 9, 10 feet. Nah, I don't know. They are the apex predators.
They are the apex predator. Yeah.
No,
I went to a concert up in Coventry, Vermont. It was the band Fish many moons ago. And I was there for 3 days. And on the ride home, I couldn't even stand myself. I rode the whole way home with the windows down because I stunk so freaking bad. And that was just after 3 days of being up there, you know, in the muck and the mud and stuff. But I agree. I believe it is strictly just biological filth and grime and scuzz.
Yeah, I mean, they don't exactly whip out the shampoo and know start bathing themselves. If they do go in the water, okay, but then they're going to come out. Well, Dogman will come out smelling like wet dog, for crying out loud.
Yeah,
anything with that kind of amount of hair is going to smell horrible. I mean, you ever smell a bear?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Bears reek.
Yeah, they're funk. Bears smell like funk. Nasty.
I had just really quick. I had an up close and personal one a couple years back. I was with a buddy of mine. It was bow season for deer, and this is in New Jersey. I met up with him. I climbed up he had this really nice metal stuff that went into the tree, and he made a really nice stand about 22, 23 feet off the ground, something like that. And it was a really nice platform. And we had 2 little stools to sit on. We're hanging out up there. He goes and whips out a bag of McDonald's Egg McMuffins with sausage. And I'm looking at him and I'm saying, Joe, you're a hunter? Don't you know better than it? He goes, it won't bother the deer. They'll come anyway. I go, okay. What comes out of the woods about a good 20 minutes later is a black bear, a young black bear. It wasn't very big, but I mean, big enough that it'll do you harm. It started to climb the tree, and I could smell the sucker. I mean, it smelled.
Yeah.
Long story short, he had a bow and arrow, so I pepper sprayed it. I sprayed it with a straight stream, the kind you would hit a human with. I didn't have bear spray with me. I wasn't even thinking. I'll be very honest with you. I wasn't thinking that there's going to be bear in this area, but the damn bear wanted to come up there and get a bite of the Egg McMuffin, and he was climbing the tree.
The spray worked though, didn't it?
Yes, sir, it did. Well, I mean, shit. I put my hand down there and I got him right in the nose and in the eyes.
Oh.
Hey guys, you know how strong a bear is? I saw it right in front of my own eyes. He fell 10 or 11 feet down. Boom, hit it. Got right up, rubbed his face in the ground, in the grass, and just ran off. I guess, whatever. But it didn't phase this thing. That's how strong these things are, guys. They are strong. By the way, John, it was 6 million Scoville heat units for this pepper spray. It's for human consumption.
Humans, when you figure it's our eyes, of course, our eyes are going to be like our eyes of animals' eyes, not saying sight, but there they are, right. Mucus, and our noses, it doesn't smell. We don't smell as well as a bear or a dog, right?
Not at all.
So it takes a bit more. And from what I've been told, in bear spray, it doesn't have nearly that.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. The only difference is instead of a stream, bear spray is in a wide path. It'll shoot out.
A wall.
Yeah. And like the one I have, it shoots out 36 feet and a real nice conical spray. And by the way, that works well too, because when we were in North Carolina earlier in January, we found a bear instead of a dog man. And 2 of my guys shot him with the bear spray, and it worked very well.
Yeah, one of the problems with that stuff is you got to have quick reflexes, man. If that bear comes out of the woods, you better have that stuff close or handy. It's no better than a gun, really.
I always carry it right here so I could just grab and go.
That's smart.
Grab and go, and we practice it all the time.
Yeah, I would I used to hike in northern Idaho in an area called Blue Lake, and it's like polluted with black bears.
Oh, yeah.
And we used to go hiking up there, me and my buddy Steve, and you see prints everywhere. Well, every time there's like a crossing or something, a bit of mud in the trail, there's bear paws everywhere, right? So there's like bones laying everywhere, chomped apart. So this is definitely a thick bear zone. And I carried a 12 gauge 870, and he carried the bear spray ready to go, like the whole time we were on the trail. You know, because it was scary, but we wanted to go up there and see what it was like.
Right.
And I guess, well, it was what they call a nuisance bear relocation area.
Yep.
Yeah. That's near Washington.
Talked about that.
Joe, that's near Washington State, isn't it?
Actually, it was Blue Lakes, about 3 miles east of Coeur d'Alene. I'm sorry. 3 miles east of Coeur d'Alene, headed towards Montana.
He lived the same. You lived in the same region. Well, near the same region as. You remember Nate Rudd? He does roundtables every now and then. You guys talked about it one night.
Yeah, Nate. I tried getting hold of him a few times. He never really got back to me. But then I ended up moving back to Pennsylvania. So I just had some information I wanted, because I was leaving Idaho, and I knew I was leaving. I wanted to pass on some stuff, and it was. He just never got back to me, so I haven't talked to him since. So
yeah, well, he'll be on with us next week. He'll be back.
I didn't tell you about my encounter with the smell.
I was just gonna ask you, Daryl, what your thoughts on this whole thing?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure that it's anything they produce, you know, like maybe a skunk or something like that. I think it's mostly probably just a stench, like everybody else says. But I smelt the forest people or Bigfoot several times, but the worst smell that we've ever had was from a dog man. And it was in October this last year with my friend Martin Groves, and his truck smelled so bad he had to have it cleaned several times, and it also put some type of film out and it covered the truck. I don't know what it was, but he had a real difficult time getting it off.
Wow, that's pretty intense.
Neither of my encounters, there was no smell either time. I was feet away from a campfire the first time, the second time. The first time was a very cold winter's day. So I wish I did, but now I have smelled things in the forest that I found to be extremely off-putting, you know, but a lot of plants, you know, and you guys familiar with skunk cabbage?
Oh yeah.
Right?
Never have.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that that's what it smells like. But I've never really experienced it, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Gary, what are your thoughts on this whole deal? Did you hear the paragraph I read?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I've never personally encountered the smell with a Sasquatch, but down in Louisiana, in Florida, where they call them skunk ape, I've always got a kick out of it because they describe the smell, and the smell smells just like the mud. Well, something that's traversing through all this mud with all that hair. There you go. Y'all's statements, 90%, I'll agree with every bit of it. With Nick, especially with the bear spray. Bear spray doesn't have to be as powerful for a bear or a dog as it is a humans, because their system is 10 to 15 to 20 times more sensitive than ours. But I will say that be careful with hogs. Hogs will walk right through bear spray all the time.
Really?
Yeah, for some reason their noses, they're you know, with them digging in the mud or something. But we have multiple times hit hogs with bear spray, and they just come right through. But I have also.
That's amazing. I'd have thought that a hog would have been stopped too.
Me too.
I can count. I mean, and I'm not stretching it. I could probably say 10 times that I know. And what I'll do is next time I go hog hunting, I'll hit one and I'll video it for you guys.
You're
okay.
Right, Gary. You're right. I'm remembering something from the past, way back there. Hogs are made different.
Well, their olfactory system's different.
Yeah, their nose is set up different, and their olfactory system.
I tell you what it is.
I can't remember what it is, but they get in the garbage, and, you know.
Yeah, but I tell you, part of what it is the hog's closest kin is a hippopotamus. They can close their nostrils off.
There you go. Yeah,
that's right. But I've also seen dogs walk through real excitable dogs.
Really?
For spray. Yeah. But But with the scent, I've always wondered, with us dealing with the dogs and everything like we do, and with some primates, when they get excited, they expel gas. I've always wondered. Yeah. I've had my dogs when they get excited, for lack of better terms, they fart.
Right.
And I've always wondered. I've always wondered with that. And then while we were sitting there talking, when I was thinking of that, I remembered a report way back in the day where this Sasquatch, where these folks was in an RV, and they got a video film of this Sasquatch walking in front, and they talked about it having an erection.
I remember that.
Some primates, when they get excited, you even see, on I used to watch this documentary show called Chimp Island, Escape from or Return to Chimp Island or something like that. And a lot of them would get erections, but even when they're fighting, it makes you wonder what a natural stimulus does to the body. I mean,
right.
We have to get that old, and I'm a true, it happened to me. The old saying, getting the shit scared out of you. There's a lot of truth to that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank God he said that. I thought he was going to talk about the other thing.
No. Herman knows what I'm talking about.
But that answers a lot of humans' reactions that I know.
I mean, but you even think about it in a sociological, we are, and I know it sounds silly, but we are taught sociologically not to pass gas. It's a 100% natural phenomenon. And it's something like this, they'll just pass gas all the time. But the one thing that's I've always wondered too, is y'all know I'm doing a study on infrasound. Well, one of the first factors it gets is your olfactory system.
Yeah.
It makes you smell things. And another thing too, our olfactory system is directly tied to our central cortex, which is directly tied to our memory. We will remember smells far more than we will any other stimulus. So it's weird how all this is tied together. But I've personally I've been walking through the woods and get that funky smell a lot. Yeah. And I've been walking through the woods and get a sulfury smell. But I've never, even when I seen the one at 24 inches or however much, of course, the only thing I was smelling was my own feces. But, I didn't smell it with him.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's another thing I was going to, mention, Gary, is, what do they need to, when you mentioned there's Justin, you mentioned the infrasound, and I can personally attest to that. That's 100% real, because I know I've been zapped, and Daryl, I know you have too. And what would they need a gland to let off that stench if they've got the infrasound to fend off?
Absolutely.
Violators.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to say predators, because it's not
right.
And I know one of y'all mentioned about, being, John, you know this as well as I do. The ancient cultures of man did not bathe. Bathing came from the Eastern cultures. These things, I don't know how many of y'all ever skinned a hog. They stink. A bear stinks. These things, they don't have the sociological, hey, I need to go wash, that's a natural smell for them. Right. So I'm sure they would stink, with all that hair on them and rolling in the mud. And
a rabbit stinks. Can you imagine? Can you imagine eating a rabbit raw?
Dude.
Oh man.
God.
It's
they're like a musty.
It's funny you say that, because when the last time I went and got a coastal brown bear up in Alaska, they said you do, because I've always ate black bear. I love eating black bear, some of the best meat out there, and even grizzly. But they said you do not eat these things. What do they eat? And I got to thinking about it. This was before I shot it. I got to thinking about it. These guys eat that rotten salmon.
Yeah.
Well, when we skinned that, I couldn't. It was so bad, and I'm pretty strong. Got a tolerance, but I couldn't hardly stand skinning the thing.
You are what you eat.
Huh?
You are what you eat.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All you got to do is forget to bring a knife with you, and somebody else will do it for you.
No, they'll lend it to you.
Yeah, they'll lend it to you.
Here you go, Gary. I didn't forget my knife.
That's not a knife. Yeah.
This is a knife.
It's funny, on most of them hunts, they won't allow you to skin them.
They do it right
in Alaska, because the permit is actually coming from the guide himself, and they also don't want to damage the hide, and they for record keeping and stuff like that. But I've always wondered on the scent with, Jeremiah, we've had this discussion, and Nick and John, Justin, we've always wondered if it might be a defensive system, but if that's the case, how come 95% of the incidents that I'm hearing when they talk about the smell, it's not an aggressive behavior. It's not an aggressive encounter. They just see it or they smell it, and then they see it. I'm wondering if they're just downwind of the thing and the thing smells like a bushwhacker.
Could very good possibility. Justin, here, let me read you this real quick, and then we'll get to your thoughts. Okay, it's from one of our viewers. Concerning the scent associated with Sasquatch and other cryptids, it would be interesting in the accounts that is reported to tally how many times it was noticed before, during, and after the actual sighting. This would help figure out if it's a continual bodily function or I can't even understand that word he's saying. Reactionary. And if so, to or for what stimulus or desired effect? ? Warning or defensive to other potential predators or threats? ? Or offensive measure meant to sicken or debilitate potential prey? What do you think?
Well, just going by the reports and the studies I've done, I know gorillas have a gland where they can emit certain musk odors and stuff like that. Now, Gary, we got to remember, defensive does not always mean aggressive action, right? So
Very
it
good point.
could also be a fear reaction, or if they get startled, and it may not even be something they could control. It could be an involuntary glandular reaction, right?
Yep.
So I personally think it's a combination.
Yeah,
I really do, right? So I think in certain areas, certain environments, these things are going to stink to high heavens, If they're in lowland areas and swampy areas like the Florida skunk ape and the Everglades, or different areas like that, I think they're going to have the smell of their environment. If you guys know anything about digging around in the swamps, all that decaying detritus down there in the bottom of the water stinks, and so and if they're walking through that and that's one of their main areas, then they're going to get that kind of stink to them, right? Conversely, I mean, there's so many times where you don't even know they're there, according to reports, but then suddenly you just see them and they're there and they're gone, right?
Yeah.
Also, you hear about the reports of people walking into like a wall of stink, right?
Yeah.
But then they do like 3 steps or 4 steps or whatever. That's just the number. And they're out of it. But if they turn back and walk back through it, they get hit again, right?
Yep.
So to me, that's almost indicative of like a cloud, like a glandular release. You know what I mean? So I personally think there's a combination in there of all of the above. I don't necessarily think it's an aggressive thing, although it could be a dominance thing.
Could be.
You know what I'm saying? As a possibility, because we don't know if it's because in certain animals, take a mandrill, the big baboons, they don't all get the bright blue and red face. That's a dominant male trait, if I remember correctly, right? And so their social stature can kind of have physiological changes to them, right? So what about the possibility maybe that's a specific alpha male trait, maybe, or within the upper class of warriors, like in a group of chimps, you have your top 3 or 4 people that run it under the alpha male. Maybe there's some kind of physiological change with it too. We just don't know. But I think that it is definitely a combination of environment for a lot of them, and there's some kind of glandular release as well, just based on the evidence and the reports that we get in.
Have any of you guys ever been in a primate house?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's always kind of like what I envisioned it would smell like.
Well, growing up, I had pet monkeys and primates and stuff, so they can get pretty foul as a natural smell. I mean, they really can.
Right. That was the thing. I mean, you walk into these primate houses in a zoo, and it's borderline intolerable sometimes.
Yeah.
In the summertime.
Well, for us people that are kind of desensitized to natural smells, I've been known to walk into the gorilla house at the Henry Dorley Zoo in Omaha and just be kind of like, yep, that smells like monkey. That smells like
once
hate,
again. Once again, our sociological being makes that smell offensive to us, to an animal. Right. To my dog, my dog thinks it's like, woohoo, caviar. They love that smell. They'll go roll on something dead,
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at ferrets, right? A lot of people can't stand the smell of ferrets.
Absolutely.
I personally had a few ferrets back in the years, and I thought I had no issue with the smell. It was just an animal smell to me. I didn't have a problem with it.
I think we just lost Daryl.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Weird.
I've always thought that it was very interesting, the amount of reports that I get that has the smell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to be like it's escalating. In the last, say, 10 years, it seems there's more of them. And I've always, and don't take me wrong when I say this, but I think it's on account of too many people listening to podcasts. And
I was going to say, yeah,
simulating that because, back in the day, you didn't get a lot of that how would you say, that amount of information. But now it seems like we're getting more of it because the information is more readily available.
I got to agree with you on that.
I wonder if it's a case of wanting to make sure that their report is true or whatever, or if it's a case of being more aware of people listening to the podcast, more information being out there, so they're more aware of what to look for, right? Like how often do we hear now about like the woods going silent?
Yes,
but people are noticing that, I think, more than it's actually just happening more. Maybe they're just being more aware as the information gets disseminated out there.
Yeah, good point.
That's one of the oldest pieces of information I've been aware of was this. What happened to the other fellow?
Yeah, where's Daryl?
Yeah, we lost him.
Anyway, that's one of the pieces of information that has always been there on the forefront.
You want to send it to him again?
That's kind of like almost, I don't know whether the silent forest syndrome is a real thing or not, but I have been in some situations where the woods have gone completely dead silent for no absolute reason that I can think of. But animals behave weird. They can track the wind and the weather and barometric pressure changes, and birds can migrate to feed elsewhere. I don't know. I can't really attribute it to Sasquatch or anything else. I'd like to think it was.
The animals might just be saying, "Hey, there's a human in the woods," and
that's
How many times I've gone deer hunting and it's just dead quiet, and I'm thinking, well, what's different? Well, I'm there. That's what's different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Now that's gonna kind of sound kind of stupid, guys. Maybe not. What if it is an all male Sasquatch thing, and it's actually one of the purposes for this could be to maybe the females like it. Maybe it smells like some type of cologne.
Possible.
Yeah. That's one of the things I was going to bring up. It's a mating scent. Could be.
If that's the case, if that's the case, and I ever see one and smell him, I don't want to be around him because he's trying to mate with me.
Right.
Or is it the female in heat?
That's true too.
Have you guys heard anything about the scent of a female being kind of a sickly, sweet, rotting fruit smell?
No, not me.
Never.
So listening,
have you lately or?
Well, not lately, but I know listening to the Outlaws back in the day.
Oh yeah.
They would talk about the females, and I think they attributed it to almost like their breath smell. Like if you could smell that, you were right up on top of a female. But they would describe it almost as like a rotting fruit floral kind of scent attributed to females.
Well, I'll tell you this. I don't think it's breath.
I don't know. I just know that's what they were.
I teach general hygiene in the bush, and that is one of the things we have to issue. My wife teaches with the women is there are certain, even the Native Americans had basic you know, things that they would do for
sure.
You don't go out in the woods once.
Well, let's remember though, there's also different medical conditions that can change how your breath smells. If you have certain types of diabetes, you're going to have a sweet smell on your breath. It's the ketoacidosis part of it.
A toothache.
Right. There's different things. So
tonsil stones.
Anything like that. It could be their diet. I mean, maybe the females tend to eat more fruit and vegetables and proteins in certain areas, and the males tend towards a higher protein diet to support their bulk. You know, there's a lot of different things. We just don't know. I just know that's one thing I had heard at one point, coming from the Outlaws. That was one of their points in their theories. If you smell that sweet, sickly, flowery smell, you're awful close to a female. You know, that's what they would teach.
That would, you know, that could be feasible. I mean, you know, even in working with the horses and working with the dogs and stuff, I teach my classes with these dogs, and especially with the owners, you know, with a horse, we always used to tell females, if it's your time of the month, stay away from the stud horses. Any big animal like that. Well, even my dogs act differently, but it almost makes, you know, you might have a good point there. That's the reason we're getting uncommonality with it. Maybe it is a seasonal thing.
Could be.
Yeah.
You know, or a monthly thing. How do you say that?
Like a pheromone thing.
Pheromone.
Yeah.
Pheromone thing. Yeah. It's like totally, you know, I don't know if you guys have found the same thing, but I noticed, you know, when I would go out and investigate, do my research, if I have, we had a couple of women on the team, and they still have their time of the month.
Yeah.
And it seems as if when they're out with us, we tend to get a little bit more action.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
I've heard that before.
Sense. Makes total sense to me.
I tell you, there's an old Bigfoot movie with Lance Henriksen in it. Go figure. But where his daughter gets crashes in the airplane, and they take a team up into the hills to go. A great movie. It's one of my favorites. But it's so funny. There's a blonde-headed girl on the team, and the guide is kind of making a move on her and stuff. And she goes, you know, you smell like a baboon. And he goes, well, at least I don't smell like I got steak tartare crawling out of my pants.
Yeah.
That's a big factor. You know,
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
That could definitely be a possibility. I mean,
it draws in black bears. I mean,
it will.
Hikers, so forth. And that's one of the things they'll tell you. And we'll call it wilderness preparedness, survival.
Absolutely.
You talk to a ranger, say up at Yellowstone, get one side, start talking to them. Hey, you know, I got some ideas on this thing too, you know, but I think it's glands. It's obviously, I think it's going to be glands. If it reproduces itself and it smells pretty much the same way, it's going to be a mixture or something. But after all, you know, do they swim? Oh my God, come on. I've heard, this island is just covered with them. Well, how'd they get to the island? I guess the ferry. But as far as being a defensive thing, I don't necessarily, it's possible, but when they got vocal and they got the strength and they got infrasound, et cetera, all this that they're supposed to have, why would they need to use a scent?
Daryl, you're back.
You've got. I don't think it's a direct intentional body function like a skunk. You know, I mean, skunks, they're small, so that's a good defense. And everything's bigger than a skunk. Sometimes squirrels are bigger than a skunk, you know. But that, to me, that's a defense. And I had a pet ferret. And
John, could it be like pheromone?
Yeah, but I had a pet ferret that, by gosh, we were just standing there. It was in Manitou Springs, and my ex-wife had the ferret, and some lady and her little girl visiting Colorado Springs, Manitou, they wanted to see the ferret, and I'll tell you what, that ferret cut loose, and everybody froze. It's like time stood still.
Yeah.
You know, it was, I apologized and I said, I need to get this animal away from you. because there's something it's not liking. But I do think it could possibly be a mating scent. But here again, who knows?
Yeah.
And 50% of the people say when they've ever encountered one of these, if these exist, when they've ever encountered them, they've never smelled anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, if it is a mating thing, then that would be why I don't ever smell it, because I be one ugly dude.
Well, Patty wasn't all that pretty with that beard.
Well, good point. But you did say something about the swimming. With me taking my dogs into the woods as much as I do, when it rains, it is a dominant. You get to them two dogs in a tent with you or in your truck with you. It is a dominant smell. And you're only talking, 40, 50-pound dogs. What if you took a 10 or, just like last week, a 10 or a 12-foot tall, 5-6 feet across with hair.
With hair, not fur, but hair.
Yeah, absolutely. That smell would be atrocious.
Yeah, it's one thing to get rid of fur off your dog. You wash that dog down, especially this time of year. They may start shedding. Does a primate shed? Well, I don't know. Shoot, I don't know. They can't seem to find any hair that'll pull in any kind of definite, this is from a Bigfoot, but they don't have any Bigfoot to match it to. So,
well, even people that has dreadlocks, the true dreadlock people, that don't wash the hair, you get next to them on a bus or in the same room, I can smell them 10 feet away. It's like, and that's the reason they usually have incense, because a cultural thing. Because I'm sorry, your hair stinks.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a race related thing on that either, because
that's just dirty hair.
Yeah, well, you ever notice the patchouli oil that gets used?
Mm-hmm.
I like patchouli oil, but
for beards,
it goes rancid.
Yeah, beard. I mean, how many times is y'all's girlfriends or wives beard stinks?
Never, not once.
I mean, it could be nothing more than some of their dirty laundry. As far
Justin, the only reason we're singling you out is because we're all jealous.
I know.
I'm trying, Justin. I'm trying, man. I'm trying to
keep trying. It's okay. Listen. I'm just overcompensating. That's all.
But Justin, yours looks backwards. It should be black out here and white up here.
So here's my question.
I was looking at that. The reason it's looking so white right now is because of the street light I got coming in.
Ah, okay.
So I've got a question now.
Yeah.
If it is a biological thing, if it is the hair, the body, we do know that it's crossbreed with Dogman, and because we hear it from Dogman and Sasquatch. How come only 50% of us? We've got guys in this group right here that's been in the immediate presence of these things, and we have not smelt it. Could it be an air thing, being upwind? As close as I was, I should have smelt something.
You should have, yeah.
So
well, I mean, speculation on my part would be just like humans. Some have better hygiene practices than others.
This is true.
Could be a point.
I mean, if you assuming they live in a family troop like most primates do, there's going to be grooming practices and various things, and other animals have like dirt baths and stuff they do to get rid of the excess oils and stuff. I mean, that's one possibility. If you have, let's say, a lone male, or you have a male that's just been kicked out of his group that doesn't have that kind of grooming practices anymore. Is that kind of what we're smelling? That's one possibility.
Well, like you said, primates. Primates have a hygiene. Primates do. It's been filmed. So.
Yep.
Yeah. If they are a primate.
I mean.
Yep.
Ooh,
absolutely.
So how would you? I had a conversation with a gentleman here in Oklahoma. He's in Texas now. I think his name's Chuck Schwabs, and he was talking about the sulfury smell. And we was doing a show on it, and he mentioned it, and I said, "What if I told you I could explain that real quick?" He goes, "How's that?" I said, "Dude, you're a roughneck like I am. How many times have you heard and seen Bigfoot around oil fields?" And hogs, we do a lot of hog hunting. They'll rub around the bottom of an oil tank and get that sulfur and that oil on to get the fleas off of them. I'm wondering if these things are doing the same thing or finding a sulfur lick to get the bugs off of them.
Sure.
Could be
possible.
Look, and animals have been known to do the same kind of stuff. It doesn't even have to be like a higher intelligent primate.
Yeah.
You know,
my dog does
deer and lots of animals naturally know this stuff will keep the bugs off, or this.
Absolutely.
If I eat this grass, my stomach will feel better.
Why?
You know, that kind of a thing.
Why does a dog go roll in a dead possum carcass?
Yes,
because
we don't know. I know.
To piss me off because I have to wash it.
There you go. Joking.
There you go.
But go ahead, Gary. I thought you were.
I was just going to say that there's so many aspects here that you couldn't lock it. We could spend 3 weeks just talking about each subject, and we don't have enough. Once again, this is all speculative, but we don't have enough information. But one thing that's always bugged me is why is there only 50, sometimes less than 50% of people not associating the smell, where even with me, I've never had the smell, happen to.
Maybe they're just not thinking about it at the time. Maybe they're scared shitless and they smell their own urine and feces. They're embarrassed and they're like, I want to get the hell out of here.
Very well could be.
I ask people 5 certain questions all the time. And one of them is, what's the weather condition? Another one is, did you smell anything? I don't ask, did the cryptid smell like something? I don't ask that, and they were like, I was too busy shitting my own pants to smell anything else.
Yeah.
A lot of times they don't notice anything.
Yeah.
One guy couldn't even tell me what the weather was in that day.
Well, once again, with all these reports, every one of you's taking reports. It's like they focus on one thing. When you seen mine, I focused on his shoulders and his nostrils. That's what my mind took. And Nick, with your report, you focused on his hands and claws and his eyes looking at you and him having that snarling grin. It's funny how that happens. And some people, I guess, they just focused on that smell.
Yeah,
it's true.
I think most of the smells are people going through the woods and they pick up the smell more than it is a confrontation or encounter. Because I've done that, been in the woods before and had the strong smell, but I've been closer to them and didn't smell them. So,
yeah.
Well, another thing too, and this is one thing that I always tell people. A lot of y'all been in the woods a lot, but especially in the Pacific Northwest. If you walk up on a rotting log, a decaying log, and you downwind of it, and it is so pungent, it just eats at you. And down here in the South, when we get in these mud walls, it's just decay, and it does. It acts like a wall. I've just one time at Brown Springs last year, I found that wall and I started looking, and I'm not going to say a certain member of my team, my dad. It's a Sasquatch, and I'm like, no, look right over here. There's a mud hole, a hog wall, and we went over there, and I was able to get down and verify it. But I just,
Gary, it's the bacteria. Bacteria is
absolutely
everywhere. It's on you.
Absolutely,
it's on my scalp. It's all over the place, and that bacteria stinks. Now, I've been all over the United States. I've been in Louisiana. I mean, God, and those friggin' swamps over there.
Yeah.
It stinks.
Yeah.
It stinks. Now, I've also been down there during the months of February and March, and it's a little bit better. And it depends on the time of the year and the weather conditions.
Absolutely.
Going through a forest area, sometimes it is disgusting when it's damp out.
Yes.
And I always have a jumpsuit in my Jeep.
Absolutely.
When I get back, I'm not modest. I just strip everything down, throw it in a plastic bag to be cleaned later, and throw on a jumpsuit because I stink like hell.
Yep.
And I also have baggies I put over the seats because I don't want to get anything on there. Change out the shoes, change out everything.
The average person does not camp over 48 to 52 hours at a time, and then they go home and take a shower. We've always called it the wall. The average human, when you hit 52 hours, if you can camp for 52 hours, then you start getting comfortable with your smell and comfortable with how you, after that point, you're okay. I've spent months in the field, in the military and teaching everything else. But people used to make fun of me when it'd be 110 degrees here in Oklahoma, and I'm running around literally in a kilt, in a canvas kilt in the woods. And they're like, why are you doing this? Come talk to me in 2 days, boys. Because they get that crotch rot, they get that bacteria and stuff built up around them, and they're dying. And I'm like, hey guys, watch me. I'm gonna step off out in this river over here, and I still got my clothes on, and I'm washing. And then when I step out, the first thing they teach us in survival and in the military, and Nick, you know this as well as I do, when you get in a jungle campaign, your socks come off and your underwear comes off.
You definitely got. You're gonna get jungle rot on your
jungle rot, Nick.
What's that?
It's called jungle rot?
Yeah,
jungle rot.
Get the jungle rot on your feet. You got to change those socks.
Absolutely.
Special powder to put on there. You know, you trim things out as best you can. I mean,
I can't remember wearing socks in the jungle. Be honest,
they don't
at all.
They don't. Loincloth.
Yeah.
True point. Lets air pass through. You know, it's.
Yeah.
And reenacting, I've wore a loincloth for days.
Absolutely. Okay, so if you take this factor in, and you take something that's got 8 to 10 inches of hair all over its body, that would explain why nature, when they describe this, they don't have long hair under here. They don't have long hair here. They don't have long hair around their crotch. You look at the primates. So to me, that's a natural biological piece of evidence. But when you factor in all that hair, just like you said, it's not like it's fur. You know, a dog has bacterial with fur that will help keep it clean. But you take a lamb or a sheep, they stink because they have that long wool. Same way with hair. Yeah. It's something, you know, Mother Nature is a beautiful thing, but sometimes it messes up. And these things would stink. I mean, they would flat out, especially Florida going through the swamps, Louisiana going through the swamps. The biggest thing, Nick, you was talking about with my wife is from Louisiana, and all her family, they talk about the rougarou, and they say it stinks. They say they smell it all the time, and they'll smell it before it even gets there. And I never put 2 and 2 together, but you're in the swamp and you're a hairy animal.
The Choctaw say the same thing about Champ.
About what?
Champ.
Yeah.
In down in Mississippi and the Delta region, they have the champ, and they Choctaws say that it stinks to high hell too.
Yes.
So I actually have a buddy that used to be the chief of police for Tucker Reservation, and he's told me more than once the smell that he has smelled in the woods, and he believes it to be that. So.
Here's another good it's a possibility, and my wife's probably gonna kill me for saying this, but we have a most of you guys have kids, you know, or a lot of you guys have boys, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You do, John, you know, Daryl, you get a couple boys, don't you? Justin, Gary, you know, we all do, you know. And you ever notice when they're going through puberty, no matter how many times like I said, Stacey's gonna kill me for saying this, but he showers. He will shower every day, but it's that prepubescent.
That's the hormone dumps. It's the hormone dumps going through the system. Yeah.
I knew put 5 of them in a room together overnight playing video games till 5 in the morning.
Yes.
Open that door when you get up in the morning to say, "Hey, you guys have to go to bed last night."
Yeah.
Holy shit! It hits you in the face like a sledgehammer.
It does.
I knew a young man, God bless him, man. He was a great kid that he had a problem medically with body odor, and it's hard to be in the same room with him. And he went in the military, and he was also honorably discharged from the military because of that. You could not be in this, you know. And I'm sure that it's a condition that, you know, can be treated. I'm sure it is. But, you know, Sasquatch does not go to the drugstore. So what's the possibilities?
John, my daughter actually suffered from that, believe it or not. She actually had that. I don't remember what it's called, but essentially her underarm perspiration reeked of onion. It smelled like onions.
Onion.
She went and got, she had, here we go. She got Botox injections in her armpits.
Yeah.
And over time, it finally stopped and her hormones balanced out and she quit producing that smell.
Yeah,
It was very embarrassing for her. My daughter's a very charismatic person. And for her to go through that was very, very humbling, you know.
Yeah.
But the injections over time did work.
Certainly built character for her, though, didn't it? I mean,
I guess.
she's I want to say a better person, I would imagine. You know what I'm trying to say.
So, John, you're saying that Sasquatch doesn't go to the pharmacy to get it? I mean, there's a Dr. Squatch deodorant out there.
Yeah, I know. You didn't
Hey, it
know
works
that.
pretty damn good too. Just saying.
Yeah.
The
Squatch.
coffee's great too.
Yeah. Coffee's great. Yeah. I want to meet that dude.
So, along this topic.
I mean the Tactisquatch coffee from Black Rifle.
Black Rifle, yep.
Yeah.
I buy it all the time.
I'll be damned. Walmart now sells Black Rifle coffee.
Yep, they do.
Amazing.
Listen, if I'm buying Sasquatch coffee, it's coming from Gunner out there in the Pacific Northwest from the Sasquatch Coffee Company. I'm going to do a shameless plug there. I'm a coffee drinker. You guys know I'm a coffee drinker. I was born and raised drinking coffee. Coffee bean is my birthstone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that coffee I got from Gunner, man, that's great stuff out there.
Justin, one of the best things about living out west, up there in the Northwest, is like every street corner you come to, there's a coffee stand.
Yeah.
Coffee huts like everywhere. I always thought they used to be old photo mats, but no, they just sprung up on their own. So,
Jeremiah, what happened to Gary? Did he go to take a shower or something? Oh, there he is.
No, he's back. He's back.
No, my son came in and my dog was going nuts, so I had to go in there and quieten the dog down.
Which one, the new one or Scout?
Scout.
Yeah.
We ain't got the new one yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm waiting on her to be how would we say? Waiting on nature to take its course.
Which brings up another good point. Now, certain types of dogs have that gland, correct?
Yep. Absolutely.
My pit bulls, I tell you what, people think they're expelling gas, but a lot of the time it's that gland.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's coming right out.
When you have a female dog, a lot of times you have to express those glands.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have to do it with him, and it's not as bad as it is with a female. But if you don't, here's the deal. I tell people all the time, speaking of dogs, if you see a dog dragging its butt on the ground, it's not wiping its butt. It's because that gland is full. I tell people that all the time. Yeah. And they're like, oh my goodness, no. And I walk over, grab the dog, lift tail, clean the gland, stink, have to go wash my hands with Dawn dish soap 3 or 4 times, and they quit doing it.
You don't use gloves? Seriously, Gary?
Well, you could use gloves, but if you try and clean it out, sometimes it does hit you in the face.
It does. But it's just one of them things, you know. I love the subject. I love these discussions is because, you know, this is stuff that normal, let's just put it the way it is. Normal people would be discussing about this subject matter, you know, but we're not normal.
You know,
right.
Absolutely not normal. Expressing the glands, of course. Yeah. Gary, is Scout fixed?
Yes.
And
I regret it to this day, but he has pancreatitis, and it's a genetic disease. And I because believe you me, I wanted Nick, as you know, you'd pay anything for a pup, you know. But I have to this day, I regret it, but I didn't want to pass that on. So we're in the process now of I'm actually starting a new breed. We're going to do a Belgian Malinois and an Airedale mix.
Nice.
I love Airedales. I've had several.
You calling it a Mountain Air?
Too. Huh?
You calling it Mountain Air?
We're thinking about it, Malinois. But yes, I love the Airedales.
Airedales are awesome. That would be a good hog dog, wouldn't it?
Oh God, yeah, be good any kind of dog.
Airedales were originally bred for bear hunting, I believe.
Absolutely. They are the most decorated war dog known right now. The Belgian Malinois after Afghanistan campaign with Canada, and now here's what's funny: Canada and America all the years since World War II. Can't compete with the amount of medals, and of course, because we didn't have that program, but the amount of medals and stuff that the English did with the Airedales in World War I and World War II. Over 250 accommodations was given to dogs in World War I and World War II. To the Airedale.
Their fur is almost like armor. It's, real nappy, like thick, wiry hair. Yeah, and they got a lot of it around their shoulders and the back of their neck. And my last one was absolutely a beautiful animal, but boy, she loved to find the nearest open cesspool. If she got loose, she'd come back 3 days later covered in shit and mud. I don't know.
Once again, we're coming back full circle. Last week we talked about the genetic variances in between the target species. Maybe some of these have got curly hair. Some of them maybe have long, straight hair. Maybe some has more hair and less hair. So that might be accommodate for the reason some of us are not getting the smells and some of us are. And then when you factor in, Justin's, some of them being groomed, some of them not being groomed. There's so many factors here that it's.
There is.
The one I saw in Idaho was, for lack of a better term, I'll quote, what was the singer's name that did Roland the Headless Thompson Gunner? Warren Zevon.
Oh.
His hair was perfect.
Yeah.
The one I saw in Idaho's hair looked like it looked like a gorilla in a zoo or somebody who had been preened and, cleaned. There was no leaves or muck or anything in that thing.
Same in mine, Joe. It almost looked like she was, I don't know if this makes sense, but, the time of year it makes you wonder if up here, being so far north, that they bring in a new coat for wintertime, because you hear about the matted hair a lot, especially down south, Gary, where you're at, and Daryl. You hear about the matted hair, and the clumps, and I've never witnessed that on one of my encounters.
But you got to think too, though, Jeremiah, the snow is actually a cleaning agent. In the wintertime, we bathe in snow, even our hair. Daryl, you was on to say something. I could catch part of it. What was?
That's okay. I was just trying to say there's one thing that we haven't brought up that I think would have a lot to do with the smell, and that's what foods they're eating certain times of year too, because they're of course going to get it all over them, and it depends on what they're eating that time of year. In summer, spring, they're going to eat a lot more vegetation because it's available.
Yeah.
In winter, they're going to eat, I would think, mostly protein foods all the time, because they'd be more likely to find that. So that would be my
good point.
You're crossing right over with something that I thought, the food. Okay, what about location, geographical location?
True. Some Sasquatch are near the water.
Yep.
And they're going to grab more fish. So they're going to be in the water in order to get the fish.
That's right.
So they might be getting cleaned off there. Same with Dogman. Well, actually, any living creature, they're going to tend to go towards the water because they're going to need water. All right, guys. And I guess if they're going hunting in the deer, they're going to go after them, but they have to go to the water sooner or later.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I can tell you now, if you're out researching, you're always going to find them near the closest game trail area to the water.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And usually parallel in it.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Something that really stinks around here, seriously, is digging for mussels in a creek.
Yep.
Oh man.
But that's a factor, John, you brought up right there that me and Jeremiah and Shane Carpenter has talked about here in the South. I think one of their main, and Jeremiah, I've been talking about it for years, and Shane, and was talking to Jeremiah, and Shane verified it, is the mussels. That is the fastest thing to go after. You're not at no danger, no energy expelled, but lots of protein coming in.
Yep.
Yeah, you just got to dig them up and choke them down.
There was
freshwater mollusks are always a risk.
Yeah.
They are very unique tasting.
There was
some of the coastal tribes even refer to them as clam diggers.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say, especially in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah.
Yeah, they have found just like massive mounds of just shells, on the beaches. And then, some people attribute it to, the indigenous population, but not current ones. You know what I mean? Not fresh mounds. And these things have been seen, you know, going through the mud flats and whatnot, digging up, you know, the clams and mussels and stuff.
I've read reports about them doing that on the Oregon coast and up in the you know, the San Juans. You know.
Well, let me throw something else at you that I've noticed here, and I brought it up with a friend of mine, Dan Nadrelio. He's a herpetologist. And I've talked with John about it and Jeremiah too. But down here where we have a lot of Sasquatch activity, we don't have no snakes. Hardly at all. And the only Dan Nadrelio was telling me for two reasons, and you think about it too. They call airborne rangers snake eaters. We're known for, in our survival school, we eat snakes. Yeah. I'll eat snakes now. I'm terrified of them. I still eat them, but these things would eat it because how easy would it be to be like I think here in the South, matter of fact, he was talking about the Bigfoot outlaws. I talked to Bear King about it years ago, about they'll get up underneath a overhang in these creeks in the heat of the day and lay up there.
Yeah.
How easy would it be for a snake to be coming by and they just reach over and grab it like this, pop its head off and start eating it? And if you're raising your children, that's the one thing. I don't think there's any predators in the Oklahoma area that would hurt them, but snakes, venomous snakes. Yeah. I think as a family fact, I think they kill the snakes around, because every place I've been, including Brown Springs, I went to Falk, Arkansas, Smith Park, where they had a lot of activity. I did not see a single water snake, and that could be due to the alligators, but I didn't see a single cottonmouth. In Oklahoma, in the areas that we have a lot of activity, we have very little rattlesnakes there, very little snakes at all. And it's weird. It's the only thing we can figure.
Yeah. And I want to add to that a little bit. In the northern panhandle of Idaho, once you get out of the Lewiston Clarkston Valley, there's a huge grade you have to go up. I think it's 7 miles. Yep. You go up, and then your elevation increases by X, right? Once you get up there, and then it becomes more wooded and forested, there are no snakes in Lake.
Well, that's an elevation factor.
Yeah, but right on the edge of it is where the rattlesnakes stop. And then if you go west a little bit, there's no elevation change really between Post Falls and Spokane.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
Over by Spokane, there's snakes. There's rattlesnakes all around Spokane.
Yeah.
If you get into North Idaho, where the forests are thick, there's no snakes there. I mean, there's water snakes. I lived there for 12 years. I saw 2 snakes, 1 garter and 1 dead water.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty.
And there are, I mean, you can look it up online. It is almost like a snake-free zone. There are no venomous snakes in North Idaho, and into the beginning of western Montana, on the western slope of the Cabinet Mountains. There are no venomous snakes there. When you brought that up, it made me think, wow, I wonder if that could be it, because the area that I am accustomed to and where we researched and hunted through was about 100-mile long, 50-mile wide swath from Spokane, Washington to like St. Regis, Montana. And that area is devoid of venomous snakes.
Well, you know, in Indiana, it's kind of interesting when you say that about, you know, you got a line that cuts off. I can walk outside here and I can pick up a Butler garter snake, you know, and people think, I say garden snake, and people think, oh, garter snakes. No, these things, you know, they wrap around your leg. You swear they'd hurt you. But South Central Indiana, you have cottonmouths and you have timber rattlers. And now the weather doesn't change, but the geographical, the geography is different. Hilly.
I'm surprised that there's cottonmouths.
Cape country. Well, it's
me too.
It's further south. Yeah. It's further south, but yeah. We picked up. There's been reports of them. I'm not going to say there's been. I can't get comfortable in this chair, but I'm not going to say there's been a lot of them. And there's going to be somebody out there who's going to say, "Oh no, that doesn't But I'm just going on the reports that I've read. You know.
Yeah. Well, even up here in the hollers, guys. Like I've been in hollers. Lived the one up in Rogersville, and we were told that they didn't have any of the venomous snakes in that holler. Like you weren't going to find a copperhead. You just didn't have them in that holler. But if you went a holler over, they had copperheads over there.
Yeah, I said cottonmouth, didn't I? And
yes,
I meant to say copperhead.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah. And I don't understand that. That don't make no sense to me at all. But that's what we were told. Because the first thing you do when you move into the hill country out here is you find your closest old timers and you find out what's going on in your area. You know what I mean? Yeah. And our neighbors, our direct neighbors, were 80-some, 90 years old, living that holler for 60 years. You know? And the guy said they just didn't have any copperheads at all in that holler. We didn't have to worry about them. You know, because I got, you know, my flock full of kids and we wanted to be able to go outside and play. And so that was the kind of things we were asking, you know. And they said, nope, you got black snakes, they ain't got no copperheads down here. We're good.
Yep.
So I don't know.
Up here, I've often heard, now you talk about smell, all right, still smell. I've often heard, they told me, they said, now watch where you walk if you start smelling cucumbers.
Look down.
Look down.
Why is that?
It's supposed to be a copperhead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like where it was a cottonmouth
release.
A cottonmouth gives off that smell, a real swampy smell, you know, a real pungent smell when you make them mad.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I just think it's funny, like at Brown Springs, where we research, where we have all our alleged activity, no snakes at all, because I look for snakes all the time, especially with my dog. You go a mile downstream or a mile upstream, they're all over the place, hanging from trees, you know. It's weird. Everywhere I went consistently, where we have our farm has a few copperheads, but we haven't seen. I think the last rattlesnake we killed on the farm, I killed 10 years ago when it bit me, and it's just weird that what's the word I'm looking for? Comparance, you know, the coincidental in there. But if these things truly survive, that's one of the first things you can eat. You can kill a snake with a stick, you know.
Sure.
Porcupines too.
But Joey, you was talking about that up there in Idaho. Do you know what the elevation was? Do you know what the elevation is there? Is it above 8,000 feet?
No.
Okay, then it won't be an elevation thing.
You're stretching my remembrances here. I'm going to say that Twin Falls is between 18 and 24.
Okay, then it ain't an elevation thing, because they've got snakes up to 8,000 feet. So it's
And then I was just looking online here, and you go like I said, if you go south out of the Panhandle, I don't know if you guys have ever been out that way. So you come outside of like Pullman, Washington, or Moscow, Idaho, and you come out and you go down to Lewiston Grade, and you go into essentially like the Snake Clearwater freaking River Valley, I guess.
Yeah. Good whitewater rafting.
The snake meet, and then the snake continue on. In that valley, give or take, there are rattlesnake populations in there. Actually, my friend Fred was camped out one night, him and his kids and the whole family. They went up and they set their RV up and all this beautiful spot. And a couple hours after, you know, right before the sun went down, all of a sudden, like 40 or 50 rattlesnakes just came slithering through their campground. They all just put their feet up and let them go through, and then they got in the truck and left. So that was, you know, they are there. I mean, I don't believe the Snake River was named because of snakes. I think it was because of its meandering course that it runs. But there are poisonous ones down there. But where I lived in Coeur d'Alene and all of North Idaho, the Lolo National Forest, Kootenai National Forest, the Panhandle National Forest, and Coeur d'Alene National Forest, I never saw a real snake the whole time I was there. Where if I left here and went down to Laurel Ridge there at the top of Chestnut Ridge, I could probably find a rattlesnake in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, it's weird up here, and you know, in the Adirondacks, people don't think we have venomous snakes or any snakes at all.
Yeah, you do.
They're highly mistaken.
Yeah, they are.
You know, like Gary, timber rattlers, we got copperheads, and you know, in all these active areas I work up here, we don't. Back to what you were saying, Gary, we don't see snakes.
No, you won't. And I would challenge anybody that's been legitimately researching for any amount of time, to go back through their notes and to keep it in mind. where you have legitimate, that's one of my key triggers. I'm sorry. And it's worked for me. Any area that you have legitimate long-term, ask Shane Carpenter if there's any snakes on the 400. I don't know what it is. Jeremiah, what you were saying, the biggest diamondback I ever seen come out of Fort Drum.
Really?
Yeah. He was about 8 foot long.
Wow.
The one time I saw a live garter snake in Idaho was in that area where I told you all the bears are, that relocation area.
Yeah.
It's called Blue Lake. That's the only place I ever saw a snake, a live one. Like I said, I saw a dead water snake there at a boat launch one time.
Yep.
Well, guys, with all this talk about snakes and everything, you made me hungry. So I'm sorry.
You even think about it. Snakes actually have very few, especially venomous snakes, have very few natural predators. Yeah. I've seen coyotes kill them. I've seen roadrunners kill them. Now, king snakes will go after a venomous snake. But in an area and that's one thing that I look for in these areas when I go in is what is the predator? Of course I'm tracking. Is there a lot of foxes? Is there wolves? Is there stuff like that? And that's another thing too. Now, this is I've heard this as hearsay, but I've also experienced it myself, where there's a lot of Sasquatch activity. There's not a lot of predator activity. Yeah. And that would make sense when you have two apex predators, except for coyotes for some reason. And I think a lot of that, what they're thinking is coyotes is not coyotes, but
I think even garter snakes will put off kind of a rancid smell if you pick them up.
Yeah.
And
anybody that's handled snakes, if you pick them up, they poo on themselves. That's their defense, is they'll poo on you.
Smell your hands and you really smell it.
Yeah, you got urine and snake crap all over you, just like a frog,
Yep.
Me myself, I'm not going to handle a snake unless he's dead and I'm trying to eat him. And if I see a rattlesnake, I'm calling in airstrikes. But
well, there's so many slow moving animals out there that do have an offensive odor that they can give off. They can urinate, they can crap, their gland can be squeezed, they can defend themselves. Who knows? Maybe they just freak and it's like, oh, there it is. But Sasquatch could be, if it's slow enough, you can eat it,
Yeah. Well, I will guarantee you this. We talked about their diet pattern, and I got to thinking about that after the show. Being in the survival schools that I have, and I've heard a lot of people say that first thing Sasquatches do is they get their hands on something that goes to their mouth. But if they're as true a survival artist as we are, they have no mental blocks. They'll eat anything to keep that calorie count up.
Yeah. You ever watch a puppy? You know what I mean? Never ever. Oh yeah. They'll eat anything. One puppy will get sick and puke it up, and another puppy comes along and
comes over and eats it.
Yeah.
That's the life of a hunter-gatherer, though. I mean, that's, the tribes I grew up with, that's all they did all day long was look for sustenance. That was 90% of what they did with their day.
Yeah.
But was looking for sustenance, whether it's fruit, whether it's roots, whether it's just walking through the jungle looking for stuff to kill or that's true. That's what hunter and gatherer means. That's literally your entire life, your entire focus. Like Gary said, is that sustenance, that caloric intake. You got to have it.
Absolutely.
And the tribes follow the food source, and that's a true thing. They follow where they can eat.
Let me ask you guys a serious question. When's the last time you've eaten raw meat?
Nope. Don't eat raw meat.
About a year ago, 2 years ago, maybe.
This morning.
Does sushi count?
Well, yeah. Well, it does. But
okay. Well,
me, I literally eat raw meat daily to keep up the bacterias in my stomach. That way, when I go teach these classes, that I don't get cholera.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are going to say, listening to this, they're going to go, raw meat. Oh, my God, yuck. Nah. As well as I do, Gary, a steak tastes the same, whether it's cooked or it's raw.
It tastes better raw for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's got that
bloody rare. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely.
And a lot of people get turned off by it, but I mean, look at grubs.
Oh man,
yeah, some grubs you shouldn't eat or couldn't, especially from where they're from, right, Justin?
Yeah.
And others, I mean, you can roll them suckers around in a pan. They taste like almonds.
Yeah.
But if you're eating, if it's like from the log to the hand or to your hand to mouth, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just saying, people just get a kick out of me when I'm walking through the ground and I find some clover or dandelion, or especially if I'm around a hayfield, I'll reach down and grab me a handful of alfalfa and start eating it.
Yeah.
And people's like, you know, Jeremiah, a true testament. I don't take, a lot of y'all know my physical ailments, you know, all my spinal injuries and everything. I don't take any painkillers. I don't even take aspirin or Tylenol. I take one natural supplement out of Indonesia and it handles my pain. And it's a tree. It's a tree.
White willow bark?
I do willow bark if I have a headache, if I'm around the farm, but I take a substance called kratom right now on a regular basis.
Oh man, be careful with that, dude.
Oh, I'm actually part of a study with it.
That stuff can be very, very harmful.
There's
different things.
You'll hear two sides of this.
Yeah, that's a whole nother show.
It's a whole other show.
And then there's the crap you buy in the gas station. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Exactly.
Yeah, I raised my own. I raised my own. So
I got it from a tobacco shop in Coeur d'Alene. And it was
it's your mistake.
You know, he knew a guy. How that goes.
No,
it was not bad, but some of that stuff is not good for you.
But I raise my own. I harvest my own. Same with my tobacco. I raise it. I harvest it. You know, and that's another thing too. I truly believe, since we're on this, I truly believe that sociological statuses has killed our bodies. These things, as a target species, I'm going to bring it back full circle, have done everything naturally. They have built up natural enzymes. I love how Nick and y'all put it earlier about the bacteria. There was a study done at Harvard. A biology professor at Harvard did not take a shower for 13 years. He developed a certain bacteria. They was doing like BO sniff tests and stuff, but he had developed a bacteria that literally cleaned the dead skin and everything off your body. We don't know what with these things, and I love how Nick put it with what they're eating. It could change from time to time.
Yes.
These things have a natural tolerance built up. Did you know that our gallbladders have gotten, every generation gets smaller because of we're eating more processed foods and we're not needing that to process the natural foods. Our jaws are getting weaker every year. Every generation, our feet are changing because we bind our feet. But the whole thing is we don't know what the biochemistry of these things are. And I love how y'all put that, you know, in one area, I think it was John, that one area they could smell one way, another area, and then somebody mentioned protein. If I change my dog's diet, if I give him 2% more protein in 2 days, I can't be in the same room with him because he starts passing gas.
Yeah.
And there's so many factors here, and great discussion.
It's all the difference between a human being eating, say, Asian food.
Absolutely.
One night, and then they go on a binge of Mexican food and some Thai food, and then I'm going to go eat some oatmeal.
Taco Bell is not Mexican food. Taco Bell is atrocity. It's terrible.
No, Taco Bell is not.
Nick's like, no.
Taco smell, you mean?
Yeah, even their burrito. I stood there and watched a lady the other day. I mean, my son wanted one, and it was a thing of, okay, I'll try a burrito. I walked in there, man, and I mean, it was just the idea. What she lacked having was an anchor tattooed on her arm and a cigarette in her mouth. She was holding this.
And a mole with the hair coming out of it.
Yep. She throws this. Yeah, that's just her. Yeah.
It's just, no.
4 or 5 chins. And
I mean, y'all realize my background is restaurant and fast food management, right?
I know, that's the reason I brought it up.
Come on, bring it.
Well, I mean, she takes this paper napkin, throws it down, puts a burrito shell on it, ice cream scoop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she pulls this thing down that's hanging from overhead that it reminded me of a cow's udder. And she's like,
sour cream, baby.
Sour cream. and I nudged my kid, and I mean, he's special needs. And I said, you like that? He goes, no.
He's probably the smartest one in the restaurant.
Well, she's making it. We're gonna have to eat it, and I didn't eat it, but he chewed through his.
Very, very good point, though. That we have gotten to where we eat so many processed foods that our body has changed.
Yep.
I'm going in 2 months. I'm going to Indiana and teaching the Pathfinder school with for Dave Canterbury. I'm finally getting back. I'm in good enough shape to go back and do it. I'm having to change my diet, and I'm not drinking soda pops, and I'm not, I'm starting to eat more unprocessed meats, because when we go there, it'll tear you up. And
Gary, put me in touch with that. I'd like to come to that.
We're going to be right south of you. We're going to be on their property, South Indianapolis.
Well, let me know. I don't know nothing. I don't know anything.
I caught myself. I almost cussed. I'll come get your butt, and you can come down there with me.
I'd like that. You drop off. I'll tell you where. You just tell me when.
I've got your address.
Seriously, you come get me. I'll go with you. Yeah.
But that's the whole point, And he was talking. Everybody talks about LBL. Yeah. We have taught survival classes in LBL for 20 years. Had a lot of stuff happen. But you ask my instructor, you ever seen a Bigfoot? Nope, don't believe in him. You ever seen a dog man? Nope, don't believe him. What about all the crazy howls we heard? Coy wolf. I'm like, dude, there ain't been a coy wolf, and they're just now starting to get in the LBL. What about all these crazy tracks that I show you? He goes, they're exactly that. They're crazy tracks. They ain't nothing. I said, so you just don't want to believe? He goes, maybe.
Somebody don't have the time to,
Well, either that, or maybe he's got into denial. He has seen something, because I truly believe that he's been out in the field enough. He'd probably see something,
or heard something, or something weird.
Yeah.
But key point.
I always like to ask people that are outdoorsmen, especially coon hunters. I like to talk to coon hunters.
Absolutely.
See what they've come across.
Absolutely.
My one buddy is the coon hunter extraordinaire, man. Let me tell you. I'm sorry. I don't think there's anybody in the Northeast better than. I don't think there's a photograph on this planet of that man that does not have a coon dog in it. And he is, he one time confided in me that yes, indeed, one time he did see something, and it swung from tree to tree above his head, and he just said, I didn't even bother looking up because I knew right away what it was. And I'm like, well, thanks. This was like 20 years ago,
See, after that conversation last week, and we're talking about the trees and stuff.
Yeah.
You don't know how many times I've sit and think about be going through the woods and get that feeling. We call it itch. Get that itch. Nick's down here winking at me. He knows what I'm talking about. And I never think to look up. And anymore, it's like when we're at Brown Springs, I know every tree that's close enough to me that could support something, and I'm looking up, because you'd have never thought. Now, that's a whole nother discussion. How can something that's 1,000 pounds be in an oak tree that big around?
Right.
Man, I can't imagine that. The oak trees are pretty strong.
That's what I'm saying. But we hear of it happening.
Yeah.
We hear of it happening. Just like Joe, you was talking about the in the snow, the tracks, and just seeing the one track and it just disappeared. How do you explain that?
How do you explain it? No trees around.
How do you explain the smell?
Gary, that's the first thing I teach when I take people out in the woods. Look up. Don't look at your cell phone. Don't look on the ground all the time. Look up a lot. Believe me. It's the same thing when you're in a city environment, or if you're in just a rural environment. Look up, because you never know. There could be somebody on a roof with a weapon. So
what brick?
What makes you feel? Or a brick on a bridge.
Somebody mentioned it earlier.
Ready to throw one down. How many people have gotten killed by people, with a brick on a bridge?
Why do we hunt in deer stands?
Exactly. You get the high ground.
High ground.
But the whole thing is when they're in the woods, I tell them, pay attention. It's awareness. You got to have your awareness and make sure you do look up, because there could be not just a Sasquatch up there, but maybe a mountain lion or a snake for that matter.
Absolutely.
I mean, seriously.
I've actually leaned against the tree.
In Oklahoma, my team came across a lady that got bit by a spider, and it came right off the tree that she was leaning against.
That's right. I leaned against a tree when I was a kid. It was a poplar tree right in the woods, right behind my mom and dad's house. And I was playing back in the woods one day, and I just leaned against the tree, and all of a sudden I felt something moving under the palm of my hand. And it was a goddamn copperhead that went right up in between my fingers.
Oh, wasn't that lovely?
No.
How many times has any of us, I say any of us, okay, any of you guys, I know I have, go to take a whiz in the woods in the middle of the night, and you walk right smack dab into a spider's web in your face.
Right. They build them as you sleep. As soon as you go to bed, they start building.
Oh yeah.
So that works.
Yeah.
See, that's all the stuff that I was taught just growing up living in the jungle is exactly what you guys are talking about.
Yep.
Don't put your hand where you don't look first. Don't reach up and grab trees and branches. Always look all the way around, up and down and side to side. You don't just focus on the trail. In fact, you don't even focus on the trail in front of you. It's like you're driving. You focus on the trail 10 feet in front of you.
Yeah.
Because then you can see more. You're not just tunnel vision straight down,
Let me ask you all this.
And if you can't kiss it or eat it, you don't put it in your mouth.
Let me ask you all this. How many of y'all shake your boots before you put them on?
No. I put my boots in the bottom of my sleeping bag.
Yeah. I'm talking about at home.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. In my camper, I put my shoes on. First thing I do is shake them out.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really shake them out. I sometimes I knock them together, but
I shake mine, knock them together.
Now I got to worry about them.
I just grab it at the top and you slam down on the heel, and then you put, check out what's in there.
My dad used to talk.
I remember as a youngin' putting my foot in the boot and scream like a little girl because there was a big old fat toad that got itself stuck up into that boot, and put my toes in there without looking. And next thing you know, I'm squishing against this big old toad and scared the bejesus out of me. And, it come at the same time, I put my feet in my boots and there was a bee in there. I've had beetles like you just do it.
I got you beat. Fast. Black skin scorpion, Fort Irwin, California. Luckily, I killed him when I put my foot in there.
Right.
My old man used to tell me, he's raised in Kentucky. He used to tell me about when you put your foot in your shoe, you had to be careful. You might find a mouse.
Absolutely.
Happened to Stacy 2 months ago.
Yeah.
She put her sneaker on. She screamed, "Ah!" One of our cats is very predatory. We found her in the swamp.
Put the mouse in there.
And there was a mouse in there. She killed it and left it for Stacy in her shoe.
You know how many times shaking out a boot has kept me from putting my foot in a bunch of cat shit?
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to practice that years ago. I'd always check my boots. That was something my dad taught me. I don't know. Do you guys know? My dad was a Navy frogman in World War II.
Oh wow!
UDT. My dad was all right, man. He was
underwater demolition team.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was a great influence. I miss him. He died in 2007, but he was a powerhouse of a man. I mean, this guy was built like a spring. And what happened in World War II? He was underwater. Essentially, he was in the water for about 18 hours. And he was planting explosive devices on the ships, on the hulls of Japanese cargo vessels. And once they pulled him out of the water, he had to rest for a day, and he developed bilateral fungal infections in his ear.
Yeah.
Oh. So he had to get out, and they booted him out, and he ended up finishing the war in the Seabees. And he was pretty outdoorsy, that guy, but he used to teach me that, he always folded his tongue out on his boots, and made sure they were open, and he would whack them on the ground beforehand. But I don't do that anymore. I used to when I was younger.
Most people don't, but
Yeah, my biggest concern here is spiders. You know.
Yeah.
Me too.
Well,
ever since I got to bit my wolf spider.
In saying that, let me throw something else at you.
Yeah.
Did you know that the human psyche, that we only pick our feet up the bare minimum? When you're used to walking, how many times you stump your toe in the woods and it takes you about 3 hours to get to where you start lifting your damn feet? We humans, we get biomechanically, mechanical memory of just barely picking our feet up. And it's so funny even when I watch videos of Nick walking, he does it. He picks his feet up. He does what I call a woods tromp. He picks his feet up and sets on his heel and rolls to the outside of his foot. And Jeremiah does it. I noticed stuff like that because I was trained my whole life to do it. But you wouldn't believe how many times I take people in the woods and they're falling all over the place.
It's unbelievable how they do that. But the thing is, you have to make sure you don't have tunnel vision while you're out there.
Absolutely.
You have to expand your vision. That's the secret to it. When you're walking out there, it's just plain and simple. And I'm aware of that all the time. And you don't want to fall down when you're in the woods.
No, if we are aware of it, then Sasquatch more so, because that's his front room.
I theorized one time years ago. When I was in Cascade, Idaho. There were several. I can't attest to it because I didn't see anything, but we had a clear wood knock and a clear tree break or branch break, and I could feel like I was being stared at. Not like something was watching me. I didn't feel like, I feel like I'm being watched. I felt like I was being stared at, like stared through in a way. And I noticed at the base of all these pine trees where the root goes into the pine needles and dirt was all worn off. And I thought, maybe are these things using the base of trees to move from tree to tree to be quiet at night? Like instead of stepping into the sticks and ferns and other stuff, they're actually moving from tree to tree by using the right where the root meets the dirt. Because all of these trees, I actually took a picture of it somewhere. It was like the bark was almost polished off. That's a Cascade, Idaho thing, man. I'll tell you, that place is polluted.
Yeah. I'd like to see a picture of that, though.
That's fascinating.
Let me
just a quick little deal. We was teaching a survival school in Fort Hope, Louisiana. Had a couple of females with us, and one of them was not really paying a lot of attention. And she was talking about you watch where you put your feet. She stepped and tripped and fell on a cypress root and impaled her, missed her femoral artery by half an inch. We had to tourniquet her. And that's what drives me nuts when I'm in the woods. My dad especially, come on, hurry up. I go very slow and very quietly. And one other thing, last week we had a discussion. Justin had mentioned something about a certain track.
Yes.
I seen that cast.
Same here.
I was able to send it to Jeremiah and Gary. I finally found the picture of it.
It is interesting.
Unbelievable.
Show me that. Yeah. And that was, and I had mentioned something about a huge human track. It was in Africa. I checked that out, but I don't remember where. I just happened to cross it by accident. I went, oh yeah, Africa. But yeah, I want to see that track you got though.
I don't have it. I don't think I still have it. Let me look and see.
I had it on I sent it to you Messenger.
Jeremiah, have you still got it?
Yeah, I'm gonna send it to you guys right now, if you don't mind, Justin.
No, go ahead.
That'd be good to see that.
It's interesting.
I didn't have everybody's contact, so I was sent it to you two guys. I knew you could get it out there for me.
Massive.
It's crazy. I can't explain it. I mean, it could be nothing. It could be random. I don't know.
I probably have 96 different photo files, but I will find it.
Well, back on the smell thing. That's a good subject to run around. I have always wondered, have any of y'all, I know I've heard it from Tim Kumbo Baker, and we're doing some studies now, not Bigfoot related, but on infrasound, how it can affect your olfactory system. Have y'all heard of anybody in your years of research, anybody that has associated infrasound with the smell?
So
have they got zapped and smell at the same time?
No, it's generally your neural system. it's going to knock your brain for a loop. And
Okay.
generally it'll knock you to the ground. I think Jeremiah can testify to that.
Yeah.
Gary, you know what I've been studying and researching on and frequencies and different effects and stuff it has. And I actually found a research paper on frequency and how it affected the sense of smell.
Yes.
Different things like that. And this particular study actually showed there was no effect on varying frequencies and your olfactory senses. Because that was one of the things. Yeah, this was a full-blown scientific study going into the research that I'm working on frequencies and stuff. Because I had the same thing. I said, well, what if, this is another, the smell is a frequency thing, if there had been an infrasound. But all the actual scientific lab studies I have seen report that no, there is no, at least I should say measurable, right? Because in science, it has to be measurable. But there was no indication that adjustment of frequency had affected our sense of smell as a human in any way, shape, or form.
The reason and it's funny you say that because, me and John both being guitar players and bass players and in bands for so many years, we went all the way up to being on ships and around guns and airplanes. We've about covered that whole spectrum of sound. I've never been able to associate smell with sound.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
I've had taste, but it's been from flat out bacteria in your ears.
Yeah.
And I've got tinnitus, and there's sounds that I don't hear, and I know, and it's crazy. It's a high pitch. I can't even hit it, but it's high pitched.
When I told y'all I don't think I've ever been zapped, I truly believe that my dog got zapped at Brown Springs.
You were saying something about that last week.
I'm telling you, folks. I mean, I've got some physical issues from it. Justin and Jeremiah and Nick know a little bit more about it, but my dog, I almost lost my dog at Brown Springs, and I'll never take him back. But he was so sensitive. Of course, the dog is so much.
When you say you lost him, you mean like he just flat out disappeared, lost?
No, he almost died.
Died sick, lost from.
He within a matter of 3 days, he was passing blood and urine in his urine and his intestines, coughing blood and real lethargic. He would not leave my presence or my son's presence. When we'd get up to go use the bathroom, he would go over and try to he'd run over and grab our pants legs and try to drag us back into camp.
Huh.
And he'd look down the trail and growl, give that certain signal that he does on an attack, but when he wouldn't do the attack, and then just whimper in the middle of the night, and it just kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And I honestly believe that I had my first infrasound experience this weekend.
That might have been it. I mean, it's infrasound. We know the military infrasound. It'll make you sick.
Mm-hmm. It made me sick as a dog. Yeah. When I know I got hit and it knocked me, put me right on the ground, gave me threw my equilibrium off, vomited. It was intense.
That's the key word, your equilibrium. When your equilibrium is thrown off, it's a medical and scientific fact that you will get nauseous and it will throw you off.
For the last 3 days, I've been going through a bout of my sinuses. And I got up this morning I got up in the middle of the night in the dark, and it's like, whoa, I had to grab a hold of stuff because I thought I was going down.
Right.
All right. Yeah. In the dark, you don't want to do that. Well, it's been that way all day long. And I throw your head back like that, and all of a sudden it's like, oh shoot, but right. You'll mess with
All right, guys. With Jennifer, I'm going to give it over to
if you ask Jennifer, she'll tell you that I can definitely make some sounds that affects her sense of smell and make her nauseous. So I mean, it's a real thing.
I think
didn't we have that conversation at the beginning of the show?
I think we did. Yeah.
Next week that'll be the opening topic.
And guys, we're running out of time here and out of film. So Jay, take it.
Yeah, we are out of time, gentlemen. But this is a great show, guys. I appreciate you. We appreciate you guys all coming on, and this is a great conversation tonight. And we'll pick her back up next week, get another topic, answer some more questions, and everyone out there listening, we will be back next week, and
looking forward to
once again entertain you. and answer some of your questions. But gentlemen, you all have a good night. Thank you for coming on. And
pleasure.
I'll talk to all you guys soon.
Absolutely. You guys have a great one.
Good night, everybody.
And Gary, get a hold of me.
I will.
Good night.
I will.
Good night, guys. I'm looking for him right now.